different route.
You want a different route. You didn't want to have
Okay.
it here and file it there.
Okay. Kenyan Paris, Kenyan Aguftan. What does that mean? If I own Paris means the use of the property, the crop. Does that mean that I own the actual property or not? You'd say like this. If somebody has a property for use, and the other has a property because he actually owns it at some later point in time. Who is considered the primary owner? The one who actually owns the property or the one who owns the use? Rabbi Yehudah argues, and the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehudah. He argues, and it's one of the few exceptions where you have a debate between Rabbi Yehudah and Rish Lakish, and the halacha follows Rish Lakish and not Rabbi Yehudah. There's only 3 exceptions to that. This is one of them. Rabbi Yehudah says the one who uses the property, he's considered the primary owner. The one who actually owns the property is not considered the primary owner. What was the underlying question? The question would be then, this in the context, just for brief review, we had a guy who promised his son, you can have all my assets after I die. Presumably what happened here, presumably he had many other sons, he didn't want the other sons to have the property. So he gave it to one son after he dies. Okay, until he dies, who has it? The father, the dad. Who could sell the field? Can the son sell it or can the father sell it? So now, if the father sells it because he has a use of it, it's sold until the end of his life. The end of his life goes to his son. If his son sells it at the end of his father's life, he gets to keep the property.
Rabbi, why doesn't the owner have the sole right of sale?
Well, according to Rabbi Yehudah, the use of the property is considered paramount. So consider the user to be the primary owner.
Squatter's rights.
Yeah, until the owner comes calling and then it's lights out. All right. I don't understand. I accept that that's how it is. I don't understand why it is.
I
But okay.
can understand. I understand your question. I can try to look it up.
Another time.
Yeah.
Where are we on the page, Rabbi?
I'll have a look in the Kollel. I'll see if I can get you a good explanation of the logic of Rabbi Yehudah. We're about 8 lines from the wide lines, 88b.
Okay, first word in the line you're on?
D-Day.
D-Day.
The critical question is as follows. Let's say the father dies, the son dies first. So the son can't inherit his father, he's dead. Does the buyer from the son get to keep the property? So now let's explain. Let's say the son was still alive when his father died. The son inherited the property because he previously sold the rights to the field. So the field is transferred to the one who he sold the rights in fulfillment of the sale. If, however, the son was dead at the time the father died, so he can't inherit it, he's dead. If we consider the son to be the primary owner, so then he sold a property that he owns. And the buyer, in effect, is taking control now of the field to use it, but he actually owned it way back when.
Oh,
And therefore, the son doesn't need to be alive for the buyer to now gain use of the field. It's only when we say that the son is not the bona fide owner, because he doesn't have the use of the field. If he doesn't have the use of the field, and he's not the major owner, therefore he can't sell it. So actually, he never sold the field at the time of the sale. He sold the right to get the field when the father dies, because he can't sell the actual field; it doesn't belong to him. Because kinyan peres ki kinyan aguftan. Together?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So what's the bigger question that we're asking? What this is bringing in
So
something bigger.
So in context, we have 2 things to address here. The first one to address is the story of Shmuel, where Shmuel's mother was married to Shmuel's father, as you might expect, and presumably there were many other children, and she did not want her husband to inherit her. So she wrote all of her assets to her son, Shmuel. That included mainly the assets that she brought into the marriage, which are commonly known as nichse melug. Remember that word from Ksubis, he spoke about it a lot. You should also a little bit. Okay, the question is the sale valid? If we would start now, the rule of nichse melug, again, the same disclosure that I've given like a million times, but generally speaking, there is a very wide range of acceptable financial balance between husband and wife. They can live completely separately if they want. They can live completely together. If you, in the absence of a specific written relationship that's understood by both parties, there's a certain default. And we speak here of the default. The default is that when a woman gets married, let's say she comes into the marriage with $10,000 and a car, right? And maybe a dog, and maybe dishes, let's say, right? Fair assumptions? Okay. The husband can benefit from all of those things. He can drive the car until the car is, I don't know, sold to the scrapyard.
But could he resell them?
No. Moreover, let's say, for example, the woman comes in with this set of dishes and turns out it's a rare set of dishes. And by the time she dies, the husband dies, the dishes have gone up in value. Who gets that increase in value? The woman, because she owns it. The husband has a right to use the dishes. He can use it, but he does not own it. It belongs to her. So she's giving all these stuff that she owns. She gives the use to her husband, but the actual item is owned by her. This is called nichse malug. So in this case, the $10,000 would be used to buy something that would provide an income. I don't know, maybe they buy an Airbnb or something, or a rental car, or that invested in a dividend producing stock. These would all be good examples where the husband can benefit from the dividends. The woman would benefit, though, if the stock went up or down. If the rental property increased or decreased in value, she would. Okay. So the Shmuel's mother gives him all these assets, and now she dies. Shmuel's father wants the money because he says, I inherited my wife. And Shmuel says, well, not quite. In this case, Shmuel's mother gave him the assets. So she wants to collect it. So there was a major debate here between the brother of Shmuel, the same father, same parents, Rabbi, and Rabbi Yehudah. Okay. Vanan hashta. Now we're 8 lines from the wide lines. Vanan hashta. Bein Rabbi Barabba, bein Rabbi Yehudah, bein Rabbi Yehudah. We said the two halachic decisors that were making decisions here was Rabbi Yirmiyah, the brother of Shmuel, the son of Abba, ubein Rabbi Yehudah. Everyone holds like Rish Lakish. Kinyan Paris, lav kinyan agoftami. Meaning that the mother, right, Shmuel's mother, who has nichse malug, actually owns the nichse malug. Her father his father, Shmuel's father, her husband, Abba, has the right to use the nichse malug, but does not own them in any substantial way, and that means that she is able to sell them. Although obviously the sale would not be useful for the buyer until she died, where the nichse malug would be reclaimed from the husband. Because Rabbi Barabba, Isaac got a kinyan Paris, kinyan agoftami. Rabbi Barabba is saying, if kinyan Paris, kinyan agoftami, kimayis av umayis haben b'chayav, amay isle lekach kikazaven hayelav didei kazaven. If kinyan Paris is kinyan agof, then when the father, then going back to the other scenario, the father gives his son the property until he dies. The son sells to somebody else. Rabbi Barabba says this case refers even if the son dies before the father, it still goes to the buyer. Says Rabbi Barabba, that must be proof that kinyan Paris lav kinyan aguf. Because if kinyan Paris kinyan aguf, meaning the father is considered the primary owner because he owns the property. So if that's the case, kimayis av umayis haben b'chayav. If the son dies first, then the father. Amay isle lekach. Why does the buyer get the property? Kikazaven haylav didei kazaven. The buyer, the seller, the father or son had no right to sell it because he's not actually the buyer. He merely sells the rights, the privileges to get it in the future, but he doesn't sell the actual property because owning a property without owning the use of the property does not constitute ownership. So you can't actually sell it. The father has the use of the property. The father is considered the primary owner. If kinyan Paris lav kinyan, if kinyan Paris kinyan agofnami, the user is considered the owner. That must prove the case that kinyan Paris lav kinyan agofnami. The user does not constitute the primary owner. The one who actually owns it is the actual owner. And in this case, the son actually owns it, so he's actually the owner, and he could sell the fields. Okay. Adrula Kamei Rabbi Yehudah. So this is a good reasoning. Rabbi Yehudah and Rabba like this argument. It's very good. It supports him. So they went back to Rabbi Yehudah. They said, why are you disagreeing with Rabbi Yirmiyah? Amar Lahus, he said, Hachi Amar Shmuel, this is what Shmuel said, Zu Enedem the Mishnah Seinu. It's not comparable. Okay, my time, why not? Amar Yosef, so Yosef explains, Bishlem Mitani Ibcha. Let's say it was the opposite. Somebody who gives his assets to his father. The Kinyan Paris Lav Kinyan Aguftami. Okay, let's see this outside first. Let's discuss it outside, and then we'll get to an inside. Basically, in a nutshell, Rabbi Yosef's argument is as follows. It's a little different. Why is it different? Rabbi Yosef now draws to the fact that a son is a logical inheritor of his father. So this case is a little bit different. Why? Because over here, because the son inherits his father, that's why the son is able to sell it, even if he dies before the father dies.
But then who does that benefit go to once he sells it? Wouldn't it go back to the father? Father's still alive.
So because he's considered an inheritor, we say that Kinyan Paris, that even though Kinyan Paris is Kinyan Aguftami, because the son is an inheritor, we consider him to be the primary owner,
The son.
even though he can't use it, because it's sort of going in his direction. And as opposed, if he would have the reverse scenario where the son sold it to the father,
Yeah.
in other words, the son says to the father, the son, let's say terminally ill, he says to his father, I'm giving you all my property. I'm giving you all my property on condition that I can use it until the day I die. That condition. I'm giving it to you after I die. So the father says, okay, fine. Says Rabbi Yosef that in that scenario, then it would be the case that the father would need to be alive after the son dies. If the father has a sudden death before the terminally ill son dies, in that case, the father's sale to a third party would not be valid. Meaning what happened was the son gives it to the father after he dies, terminally ill son. The father goes ahead, sells it to Reuven. In this case, says Rabbi Yosef, if the halacha would be that the sale would be valid even if the father suddenly died prior to the terminally ill son's death, that would be a proof to the question.
That'd be an approved sale.
That would be a proof to the question that of Shmuel's mother. That Shmuel's mother would be able to sell the item. Now that the scenario is reversed, we talk about the reason why we say Kinyan Paris Laf Kinyan Aguftami is because the son here is considered an inheritor. So the ownership of the son is much more real than in the reverse scenario, where the father is buying the son's property, where his ownership is less real because he's not an inheritor. Now you might be wondering that actually the father does inherit a son, right? If the primary inheritance is a son to a father, but if there are no sons, then there's daughters. But if there's no daughters, but if there's no children, it goes upward, goes to the father. As a matter of fact, brothers only inherit insofar that what happens actually is that so a father gives to his kids. No kids goes up to the father. If the father is dead, then his kids get it. That's how a brother inherits. A brother inherits actually by going up first and then going down to the sons. And if there are no, if he was an only child, then it would go up a generation. Same story. Go down again to the kids. If there are no kids, no descendants, goes back up again. Goes down again, up again, down again, etc. Right?
Okay. So that there's no.
A brother is not a direct inheritor. A brother never directly inherits somebody else. The exception of that is yibum. If you do yibum, then you directly inherit your brother.
Okay.
But without yibum, it's an indirect inheritance. You're actually inheriting the father. Father is alive, the brothers don't inherit. Okay. You mean his son inherits, the father doesn't inherit? Sorry, bro yoris, abba yoris, bro. Okay, in other words, what happened here in these stories? Of course, the father is an inheritor. Of course, the sons are inheritors. What really happened in the story? Why is the father giving the son his property if he's going to die anyway and his son's going to inherit him anyway? The answer is there are other brothers, right? And the father is trying to give this one of his sons, this son, a different portion, a different size portion than he would otherwise be getting. He's trying to avruchino. Avruchino means to chase away. He's chasing his assets from his other kids and giving it to this kid. The same is true the other direction. Why is a terminally ill son giving his assets to his father? Presumably because the terminally ill son also has kids and doesn't want his kids to inherit him. So he sends his assets to his father to ensure that his kids won't inherit him. But essentially, they're exactly the same scenario. Okay, Elamai and Dermot. So we have to go back. When Rabbi Yehudah said that they're not comparable, what did Rabbi Yehudah mean? The answer is very simple. Usha. In reasoning, Rabbi Yomi Bava is absolutely correct. The reasoning of Rabbi Yomi Bava is ironclad. Kinyan Paris, Laf Kinyan Agoftami. That is the halacha. You have use of the item. You are not considered the primary owner. The primary owner of an item is considered the owner of the item, and therefore Shmuel's mother actually owned her nechsem belug, and was it completely within her right to distribute it to her son Shmuel and not to her husband, her husband Abba. Exactly like Rabbi Yirmiyah, the brother of Shmuel, ruled. However, there's a catch. What's the catch? The catch is the rule of Usha. It was a law of Usha. Usha is a town, and in Usha they made a number of different rules, and this is one of the rules. We also had it in one of the constitution more recently. I think it was in Kedushin, in the first parak. Rabbi Yosef says, a woman who sells her nechsem belug, she sells these assets that she brought into the marriage while her husband is still alive, and then she dies. The husband collects from the buyers. Rabbi Dovid says, we've learned similarly. 1 second. Okay. In other words, it's while it's true that an argument or if Yomi Bava was right, there's a special law of Usha. A woman is not allowed to sell her nechsem belug. Just like she can't sell it, she can't direct them to her son Shmuel. They're going to be inherited by her husbands. As if a woman dies first, her husband gets to inherit it. She cannot sell it to somebody else. So Rabbi Dovid Yehudah says, I have another proof to this law of Usha. So we have a very complicated scenario. Let's discuss outside a few points here. Okay, what is ksuba? Familiar with ksuba? It's a ksuba. Basically, let's say that there are 3 parts. We'll talk about one of them now. The main component of ksuba is a 200 zuz. Let's call it $10,000. It's between $5,000 and $25,000 or $30,000, depending on which rabbi is involved. Okay, let's say it's $10,000. If they get, so this is how it works. The husband promises his wife $10,000. If she dies, then he does not have to make a payment. If he dies or he divorces her, he has to pay her $10,000. So now you're thinking there's 2 possibilities of her getting the 10 grand. There's one possibility of her not getting the 10 grand, right? 2 to 1 chance. It's higher than 2 to 1 because obviously, let's presume they're equally healthy. It's 1 to 1. But divorce is either significantly higher or significantly lower, depending on how their marriage is going. Increase the probability of it's probably not 1 to 2. It's probably either 1 to 1.1 or 1 to 10. It's very likely to have a divorce, or very unlikely. Okay, regardless. So now here's the question. This is like the prediction markets, right? In English they call this gambling. How much would you gamble on this 10 grand? What's a fair number? What?
5,000.
5,000 for the woman's side. 5,000 for the woman's side. Okay, let's count. Let's say it's 5,000 for the woman's side. Okay, so here's the story. So 2 people come, two witnesses come to testify, and they say, let's say Reuven married Yenta. Okay, so they say Reuven divorced Yenta, and Reuven paid the ksuba. He paid the $10,000. Okay. Now, if the story was true that they were divorced and Yenta did not actually get the 10 grand, they wanted to make Yenta lose 10 grand, right? The problem here is another is worse because we're at top of Pei Tessim and Aleph. Yeah, turns out they're actually still married. And as you might expect, if they're still married, the witnesses are probably liars. And finally, one day they found witnesses that can certify they're liars. How do you certify they're liars? They were in a different space at the time they claimed to provide evidence. We don't say Yishalmu Kol Ksubasa. Okay, so now in this case, they didn't actually cause the woman a $10,000 loss. Why not? Because she's still married. So if she wasn't married, then there's a $10,000 loss. So they have to pay $10,000. Over here, what do we say? How much do they have to pay? They pay the Tovas Hana. What does that mean? What's the Tovas Hana? So remember that word, Tovas Hana. Literally means the benefit of the potential gain. Whereas the prediction market might call the premium that's being paid for the odds that she would get the ksuba. So how do you do that? You evaluate. That it's only paid if she is widowed, her husband dies, or she's divorced. But if she dies, you're shenabala. There's no payout at all. What's the value of that? So Hill thinks that the value is $5,000. Keep in mind, by the way, death or divorce could happen 40 years later. So you wouldn't get any payout until that actually happens. So I don't know if it's worth $5,000. I'm not sure I'd pay $5,000. Maybe get my money in 40 years. Doesn't sound like a good deal to me. I'd pay a lot less than that. Yeah, there's another point also, which is that the husband has the benefit of the ksuba until he dies. Right? It's a debt. It's not, he doesn't actually have to, so the woman doesn't get to use $10,000 for 40 years. And then, well, maybe the husband gets to use the 10 grand. The woman gets nothing. Maybe she'll get something, maybe she won't. Okay, but that sort of premium on the prediction markets, that is exactly what they have to reimburse her. Now, the Isak that Usha, if you disagree with the laws of Usha, Amayir Shana Bailo. Hizvin Ksubasa Legamri. Okay, 1 second. If we don't, if in other words, the law of Usha is that a woman can't sell her nechsim alug, cannot sell them. If we disagree with Usha and say that she could sell them, Amayir Shana Bailo, why is it that her husband inherits her? In other words, the ksuba debt, it's not, the ksuba debt should be paid even if she dies. Why? Because she could sell that ksuba debt to somebody else. In other words, the husband agrees that upon separation, you pay $10,000. And that would include if she dies. If she dies, that's a separation. If you say that she can't sell her ksuba, cannot, if she dies, then obviously the husband inherits her, so there's no payout. But if she could sell it, then there could be a payout, even if it's her fault, because she died. The marriage dissolved because of her fault, because she died. It still could be a ksuba payment. So what is a husband inheriting her? If she dies, she could sell it, and that the payout would go to somebody else, some third party. Abai says, no. Okay. Like we said, nichse malug is the car that, let's say she has a car and they get married. The husband can drive the car. Let's say the car increases in value. Who gets that increase? The woman. The woman gets it.
Right.
Let's say the car decreases in value. Who takes the loss? The woman. There's another type of asset called nichse tzayim barzel. This is really attached to the ksuba. Again, Ashkenazi circles not quite, whatever. We just do double the regular ksuba. Sephardi circles is much more of a variance here. But nichse tzayim barzel, let's say in a Sephardi wedding, it could be a house. Not uncommon, not unheard of, especially if they're wealthy. So what happens to the house? Let's say the house increases, if it's put in the nichse tzayim barzel category, the house increases in value, the husband keeps the increase. And if it decreases in value and they get divorced, the husband must make her whole. It's a very different type of it's much more in line with the actual ksuba. It's a fixed amount of money. This is what it is. And
now when does this come into play? What situation does this
So
kind of
this is
reverse
tip-
scenario end up?
what do you mean?
What triggers what you're just describing?
So
versus
so
the
so let's
usual
let's say an Ashkenazi ksuba, standard Ashkenazi ksuba is standard. It's exactly what it is. Everyone is identical.
response?
If the woman is if it's a first time marriage, it's one document. If it's a second marriage, it's a different, slightly different document.
Mhm.
It's a 1 word difference, 2 word difference, actually, 3 word difference, maybe. Very small differences.
Okay.
A Sephardic ksuba, on the other hand, has a significant variation depending on how wealthy they are. They promise a lot of money to each other
Mhm.
to ensure the integrity of the marriage. I was telling over a story. I mentioned this once in a shir. There's a Sephardi couple in 2018. They got married in Israel. He offered her 1,000,000 shekel ksuba,
Mhm.
and because they were cool and young and hip, they decided to write it down in Bitcoin. And I think it was written down as 20 Bitcoin. Yeah, and apparently the marriage did not last long, but this is like the hype of 2018, and they got divorced a couple months later. The price of the 1,000,000 shekel in
And that was worth
Bitcoin,
like $15 to
the
him.
1,000,000 shekel of Bitcoin was worth maybe, I don't know, 150,000 shekel. And she said it never really meant 1,000,000 shekel was just a placeholder. A 20 Bitcoin was just a placeholder for 1,000,000 shekel. And he claimed, no, it was 20 Bitcoin,
It is
whatever
what
it
it
was. It is what it is.
I bet they sided with him.
And there was a Rabbanut case. I could not find the case. But you should be able to search Rabbanut
Did you hear
database.
the
I cannot
verdict?
find it. I know I don't remember the verdict, but you should be able to find it because, like I said, you can search Rabbanut cases. Anyway, so that is called Nichsit Sem Barzel. So Abai is basically pointing out that even if you could sell, even if you disagree with Usha with regard to selling Nichsit Malug, that it completely doesn't apply to Nichsit Sem Barzel. Nichsit Sem Barzel actually belong to the husband. So therefore, the woman, it's not up to the woman to sell it. It's the husband's. The husband's responsible for both an increase and a decrease in value. He gains the increase and he has to cover the decrease. So therefore, it is the case that a woman cannot a woman cannot sell the ksuba, which doesn't belong to her. It's Nichsit Sem Barzel, that her husband promises her after their divorce. And therefore, if she's divorced, if she dies, it's inherited by her husband.
So this enactment of Usha, this is what became prevalent in society? Was
So we're
this
sort
one
of
area?
no. So that's
Yeah.
really the question. The Gemara here is claiming it became prevalent and everyone accepted Usha's ruling,
Oh, okay.
but not so quickly. The Gemara here is proposing otherwise, and Abai is rejecting that. Okay, Amar Abaya. So Abaya says, "Toiva Sanah, Hoyav Asli Yada, name of a Milsa." Once we're talking about Toiva Sanah, let's say something about it. Toiva Sanah li'isha hava. The benefit of the potential premium to pay for a ksuba, maybe the woman will get the ksuba, belongs to the woman. In other words, typically again, you can make whatever arrangement you want as a married couple, but typically speaking, in the absence of no arrangement, whatever the woman acquires is owned by her husband. So now the question is, if the woman sells her ksuba, does her husband get to keep the premium? Says Abaya, no. He said labal hava, because if it belongs to her husband, lamer lo edim by afsadinach. The witnesses could say to the woman, well, if we in this case, right, the witnesses said they were divorced and he paid the ksuba, and actually they're never divorced. It wasn't true. So they could say to the woman, well, why do we have to pay you the toiva sana, the possibility that you might get the ksuba, if that money would have gone to your husband anyway? Obviously it wouldn't go to the husband, it would go to you, and that's why the witnesses have to pay the money to the woman. Amr Shalman says, not necessarily. The husband probably is very happy that his wife is selling his ksuba for ksuba and giving him the premium. It would make him very happy. So actually, she would benefit from the toiva sanah if she sold the ksuba. The benefit that her husband would make her husband happy.
Real quick, selling the ketubah,
Selling ksuba means the woman is selling the rights to collect her debt in the occasion that ksuba is paid.
okay.
Okay. Amar Rava says, Hilchas halacha is toiva sanah l'isha. Ve'ena bal eichel peres. The toiva sanah money goes to the woman, and it's not nechse malug. It's completely her money. My time up. The rabbis say that a woman has that nechse malug goes to the husband. That sort of the fruits of her property go to the husband. Pera de pera lo to rabbanon. But the fruits of the fruits don't go to the husband. In other words, the fact that the woman can sell a benefit, that money does not go to the husband. Ki asar papa for Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua mi Rav Amri, they taught Tnina to Konas Usha. We have a Mishnah that supports the opinion of Usha. Ha'evid, this is our Mishnah. Ha'evid v'ha'isha p'giyas and raw. A slave and a woman, don't get into a fight with them. If you damaged them, you'll have to pay. If they damage you, they're exempt for the time being, unless the woman is divorced or the slave is free, in which case they have to pay. Hold on. If the statement of Usha that a woman could sell her nechse malug while she's still alive is incorrect, so then we do have a way for her to pay. His nechse malug v'titin law. She should have to sell her nechse malug. In other words, sell the possibility of getting her nechse malug should their marriage dissolve, and then that using that money she could pay for the damages. So the Gemara says, so even with the Konas Usha says that if she sells it, then the buyer can't collect after she dies. But it still is the case that she could still sell it, except that in this case the husband would have to die first, and then the buyer would take it. So there still is value. So even Usha didn't neglect the possibility that there could be a woman could benefit from selling her nechse malug. The sale would only take place though in the event that the husband causes the divorce, causes the dissolution of the marriage. In which case the buyer would, and the woman's still alive, the buyer would come in and take the money. So there still is a way to monetize, for a woman to monetize the nechse malug. In effect, she could pay for the damages while she is still married. El de lesla. So it must be a scenario which doesn't have nechse malug. There are no assets. Hachanam de lesla. Okay, well, if there's no assets, then it doesn't prove the statement of Usha either way either. There's no assets, well, that's why she can't sell it, so it doesn't prove Usha. Usha says she can't sell it, well, she doesn't have anything to sell, of course she can't sell it. So the Gemara says, okay, 1 second. Every woman has a ksuba. So why doesn't a woman have to pay for damages by selling the prediction market premium of her ksuba? Right? Maybe there'll be divorce, so she could sell that maybe, right? and use it to pay for the damages.
Not a recipe for a...
See, Gemara says, no. Hamani Rameiri. It's the opinion of Rameiri. The Amar Oslo Adon Shikisha is Ish Tefilu Shachas by Ksuba. There always has to be that thread of paying a ksuba in a marriage. Otherwise, a man should never feel that he's able to easily divorce his wife. So she can't sell it. So the Gemara says, hold on 1 second. The time of my, what's the reason? Why can't a man live for a moment without a ksuba? So that it should not be easy to consummate a divorce. We never want divorce to be easy. So 1 second. But if she sells the rights to her ksuba, it doesn't make divorce any easier. It just means instead of paying it to her, you're paying it to some third party. The imigarish, because if he divorces her, also hanach zavni gavulog l'ksubasa. Mino, they'll go collect a ksuba. Okay, so that's not a resolution. So Gemara says, "Al tevasana milinenu mili lo mishtabdi." It's only tevasana, that sort of prediction market premium. I don't know. Does it have a better word for tevasana?
Oh.
I'm giving you the functional description. I wonder if they have a technical description.
Yeah, they're talking about the discounted amount.
What?
Discounted amount.
Discounted amount. That's not a good. That's not a good term.
She is not selling any tangible item.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, so the key is they argue that the premium, the prediction market premium is not tangible. So therefore, it can't be so. You can't. It's not meshubed. The woman's not obligated to sell this type of asset, this type of premium, to be able to pay the debt. So the Gemara says, "Alam alai, why not? It's not just mili, it's not just non-tangible, but it's mili d'mizdavni b'dinner in it. It does have a value to it. Why shouldn't it be able to be required to be handed over to pay? Elam mishum d'shmuel, because of the statement of Shmuel. The Amar Shmuel says, okay, let's give an example. So there was Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Okay, Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. Right, Shimon now can collect money from Reuven. Shimon sold the rights to collection to Levi, and then Shimon forgives the debt. Or Shimon dies, and Shimon's children forgive the debt. The law is that how much does Levi get? 0. 0. So therefore, the argument is as follows: if the woman sells her ksuba, she could always forgive it, and then the buyer gets 0. So therefore, okay. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Okay, fine. So sell the premium, and give it over to the buyer. And if she does, she forgives it. She forgives it. But why shouldn't we sell it? So the Gemara says, if it comes to the third party buyer versus the husband, she's going to always forgive the debt because she cares about her husband more. 1 second. And we're not going to ask her to sell the premium when we know that she's going to lose the premium anyway. Samara says, okay, fine. So don't sell the premium. You know what? Give the premium to the victim of her damage. Right? Give the victim of her damage the potential future rights of the ksuba. Sell it to the victim. He should get the premium. Because if he forgives it, I'm sorry, because if she forgives the loan, okay, well, she forgave the loan, but at least better than nothing, right? Better, maybe getting some sort of, maybe better get the possibility of getting her ksuba than getting nothing at all. Because otherwise I'll get nothing either. The Gemara says no. For sure she'll forgive it, and we're not constituting a court to basically give the guy something that's almost certainly useless. This that we learned in the Brisa. If a woman assaults her husband, she does not lose her ksuba. Why not? Let her husband get the premium. But she damages her husband, right? $20,000 worth of damage. So she should have to promise their ksuba to her husband. And now what's she going to do? She's going to forgive it to her husband? Doesn't make a difference, right? So let's give Sigmar says, of course that doesn't work. Why not? You can't give a ksuba to her husband because Havadi or married. Because otherwise, if she promises her husband to get her ksuba, if her husband divorces her, then in effect, there's no threat to dissolving the marriage. So Gemara says 1 second. Okay, but time in mind, what's the reason? They should take halabein and botzia, so that it's not easy to get a divorce. So Gemara says it doesn't make a difference. So let's say, like we said, let's say the woman damages Reuven, okay? Then after she's divorced, Reuven comes with his $20,000 claim and he fills it. The husband also has the right to do the same thing, right? So there is no ksuba here because they're going to get divorced. The husband will say, well, I owe you $10,000, but you owe me $20,000. So the reality is there's no ksuba. It's just the fact whether or not she promises the premium to him or not is still stuck. There's no
premium being more than the actual ksuba.
The premium is less than the ksuba, but the damages here is 20,000. So regardless, it makes no difference. Either she pays him while they're still married the premium, which is let's say I don't know $1,000, or she doesn't pay anything, and then when they get divorced, he still doesn't have to pay a ksuba. So what difference does it make? Okay. So Gemara says, okay, so Gemara proposes there was a small difference. One second. I'm sorry. In other words, what happened was actually in this case, she had a big ksuba. Her ksuba was $200,000. The damages were $10,000. So now the prediction market premium is actually worth $10,000. But the actual value of the ksuba is worth a lot more than that. So in this case, he's not going to divorce her so that he should get his money for damages, because he's going to get his $10,000, but he'll have to pay her $90,000. But the prediction market premium is only worth $10,000. So for that we say because of her marriage, we don't allow them to transfer it. Okay, we'll sort of continue in middle tomorrow.
Yes.
When you talk about prediction For market premiums, you mean in the terms of
Gambling.
the people would change value?
No, I mean, the
Or
the value of the possibility that you'll get the ksuba.
Is that like selling rights
okay,
to the
I got you.
ketubah?
It's much more like betting money that somebody wins an election or some sort of,
Yeah.
sports player, hits a home run or whatever. A team wins a game.
Yeah.
Right? There's a premium in the prediction markets. So over here, the total payout is fixed.
Yeah.
The premium, on the other hand, is the variable. Depending, if they're not having any good marriage, the premium might be very high.
We talked about the ups and downs. If you buy a house and it goes up in value.
That's
in
a
the
separate thing.
market.
That's
Yeah,
separate.
that's what we were talking about earlier. in short.
Yeah.
Market.
Yeah.
Futures market.
Yeah.